Now today on this video, what I'm going to try to show is how we install the decals on Luciano's H1, the evil twin project that we're working on now. The objective was to try to make a variant of the H1 that the factory never made. They never made a blue and silver one that I know of, and to replicate it so it would be a one-of-a-kind using the decals that John Pothier had already made up and using the backmasking techniques that we've used on all the previous videos. So it's a great day to do this, and I hope there's some information on this you can pick up for your project. Today we have the best of all worlds. It's in the 20s out here, and the good news is I don't have to be here. I can be inside basically most of the day. We did the dirty work on the RD yesterday, got the switch resolved, the electrical issues. We got this guy ready for a test ride. I'm itching to get a test ride in, but in the 20s there will be no test riding. Now, as I set up my priority list of things I want to do, I see that, as always happens in the winter, this engine gets that little crust on it. So we're going to be ready for a repolish on this, something I'll make a dedicated video on. Not today. What's the reason? Because it's freezing out here. When it's in the 20s, I really prefer being inside. And it's just me, I'm a coward. So very soon we will be caught up on our mechanical things, and we'll start. This is one of the jobs I want to show how to get rid of. And see, I want to show it already. It's on here. This grows on aluminum. This will be a dedicated video. I'll show how I get rid of that relatively easily. Probably in less than an hour I can get that whole engine looking like the way it looked before the winter came. We got the RD all set, and probably while we're polishing that up, I'll run over some of the parts with this. I have some new tools for polishing I wanted to show, but this video is not going to be about polishing. We're ready to do Luciano's decals today. I'll be happy to be inside all day doing decals. And we have done the decals, which some people call stickers, for pretty much all the bikes, and we've done them for many years with the help of John Pothier. And I think that's one of the defining things of the motorcycles I restore. Now, some of the bikes like the R1, and when this was a Ferrari bike, they have these three-dimensional things that make the bike look authentic. But of course, that's a whole different issue. I want to have the decaling on Luciano's Kawasaki H1 that when you run your hand over it, you can't feel the decals. Now, just to make an example, this is a factory job, and they do have some clear over it, but they probably put one coat of clear. I can feel the decal. If I close my eyes, I can feel that decal. On the ones John Pothier has made, you can't feel them at all. And I wanted to thank Thomas Luciano, who helped us with this project. I don't want to leave him out of the mix because of his laser cutting skills, we were able to make some really unique, I think they're super neat, and they're painted. I wanted to define this right away. This is not a decal, that's painted on with a paint mask. These are decals, and again, we can lay these out with a computer. That's what John is an expert at. And once he lays it out and we can print it on decal paper, there are several qualities of decal paper. And I don't remember, honestly, which is which, but they all seem to work reasonably well. And one of the total surprises that blew me away when I took delivery of the MT-09, not only can you not feel this is buried in probably 3 or 4 coats of clear and wet sanded and buffed. You can't feel that at all. If you close your eyes, you wouldn't think that was a 2 different color bike. But what aggravated me, they did such a beautiful job of this tank. The tank is world class. I have never seen a nicer paintwork and detailing. But then on the fender, they put decals with no clear on their flat gray. Now I keep this right out on where I can see it because it reminds me of what I don't like. And it took me a while to find a replacement fender, carbon fiber fender, but that decal sits up above the flat paint by about a 64th of an inch. Shame on Yamaha. And even on the older bikes, nothing that you can feel that striping. And when you can't feel a striping, then you know you're at the top of the food chain. And thank you, Vlad, for help with getting the carbon fiber parts for the MT-09. Boy, to think of how ugly that fender was when I bought the bike. I'm so glad. I was so happy to get rid of that fender with the big stand-up decals. And we really did make a smart decision getting all this outdoor work yesterday done. It's on yesterday's video. And just thinking of how, and you're out here on it, it's hard to explain. When you're out here on a day when it's 20 degrees, the only thing I think about is, I want to get inside. And I'm going to do that right now. And I'm glad we have this little project we're working on for Luciano. But we're always subject to the weather. That's always the problem. We don't have a climate-controlled environment here. We work around the weather. And early in the morning like this, we always hear the church bells. We live right between 3 churches. We're in the middle. The Bermuda Triangle of church bells. Oh, coming in out of that cold, it is so good. That coffee tastes so good, and I'm getting ready to work for Luciano, my top client. Luciano's been a good friend for many years, just like my birds. And we have done some really nice work for him, and we hope this project, the H1, is going to follow in the footsteps. And my family had a wonderful holiday season, and as we start the new year off, it's the only thing I can say is I hope we have less virus and more fun, and I think that's the direction we're going in. And I'm hoping that's exactly the way it's going to play out. So back down in a nice warm shop, the first thing is going to be, we're going to take the hairdryer and warm up all the tape. Right now, all the tape has to come off the tank, and we're going to do it slowly and with plenty of heat. We don't want to take any chance. I don't want to take any chance at all that we're going to pull up any paint. Now, I did spend a lot of time sanding this, getting this perfectly flat. Right now, because it's a metallic color and silver, you don't dare sand it. You'll see the sanding scratches. But I want to then, once this is the back masking is removed, I want to get out the decals and make some marks so we get them symmetrical. And if we get those decals on today, and that's going to dry overnight, wow, that's going to be a big step, and I can then send a picture to Luciano so he can eat his heart out. Most important thing now is just to get the paint off, the tape off, without pulling up the paint. And sometimes it takes a little patience. It always takes a little patience. Now, I thought I'd mention one little thing that I found the hard way. There were times, because of the way things played out in my family, that I had to put this out in the garage for a day or so. And what happens is tape in cold weather gets incredibly sticky. And if you don't heat it, or even if you do heat it sometime, you've already done the damage of making that tape so sticky that it's hard to get it off without pulling up fresh paint. And that's one of the reasons I always like to let each coat of paint, if possible. Now, I didn't do the blue. Luciano did the blue. I like to let each coat dry overnight. That's overkill, but it always ensures, or it helps ensure, that you're not going to pull up the paint at this stage of the game. And all that matters now is to be patient and keep that tape warm. Keep the hairdryer going right in front of the tape or right around it. Let the heat do its work, and you really stack the deck in your favor that you're not going to pull up this paint, which is still pretty fresh. This paint is less than a week old, and we hope we're going to get all this tape off without a problem. So far so good. That looks like it's coming up pretty nice, but each time I heat that, it just ensures. Now, another trick would be, if you have a heating vent that it's convenient to put this by, before you pull a back masking, get the whole area warmed up. I don't like a heating gun. I like a hairdryer, and I just want it, if it's just warm to the touch, the tape is going to come up as good as you possibly can. Okay, so we're done with the tin foil. Now it's a question of, we want to get each one of these stripes from our tape map up. It's best, again, it's always best to use heat. and be patient and pull the tape back relatively slowly. You stack the deck in your favor that way, especially with brand new paint.
Now, like everything in painting, there's always different opinions as to how to do things the way is the best. I have always believed, even back in the days of modeling and using butyrate dope, that before you pull tape, you let it sit 24 hours overnight. Some people that have more experience working with modern paint say you don't have to do that. I've tried it both ways. I haven't seen a big difference that I could measure. But in my opinion, I still think it's better. I think you still get a nicer, crisper edge by using fresh tape and always letting the paint dry overnight and warming the tape before you actually pull it up. And all that does is stack the deck in your favor, that you're going to get nice, crisp paint edges. That's what I've done over the years.
I think we really got the right look we're looking for, and the paint lines relatively small. Now, the one thing, if you have a metallic color, you never want to do is don't take any sandpaper and sand over raw metallic paint. So once you put the clear on, you'll see the scratches. So we want to be very delicate now. That I have one side done, I have to do the other side. But I think that's just about as good as we could have ever expected. And the thing with all these antique bikes is, there's no possible way you can go buy a brand new gas tank. So as I said on the RD video yesterday, these parts are priceless. They really are priceless. You just can't go to, and if you buy one off eBay, you don't know what kind of a rust bucket you get. Well, that's about as good as it gets. I am really impressed. Now, it's because of a lot of things. We took our time. We'll let each coat of paint dry overnight, minimum overnight, and used plenty of heat and fresh tape. And the bottom line is, it looks like we have a real nice part. So here's a couple of tips. This is the trim pattern that I made. I will save this in a drawer like I've saved all of Vlad's and Pokey's and everybody that I've had to make special trim. Because if I ever need to repair this bike, and let's face it, the reality is you ride these bikes hard, once in a while they go in a ditch. They do. Anyway, these are over the years. John Pothier has made some. Joe Roselli's made some. Turbo Steve's made some, and we've tried to keep track of them in an orderly fashion. We have literally thousands of stickers and decals, MV Agusta, Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki. Okay, so once we get our Kawasaki decals out, now we want to find, and again, what these are, they're generated by computer. That's what John Pothier does. And then once they're generated, they go on to a printer that prints them out, and then they must get coated with a coat of clear, either fixative, or in this case we use the actual paint that we're going to use to paint the motorcycle, which makes it even better. But so over the years, and I don't know, we've used so many different kinds of paper, inkjet white, inkjet clear. These are the ones Turbo Steve made for his project, and I guess go back and forth over these. And I always save the old ones. Why do we save the old ones? Because every once in a while, you need to scratch a bike, you drop a bike, and you need, whoop, there's exactly what we need right there. So I know we have plenty of them. Now, another trick of making decals, if you're going to go through all the work of making a file, and then printing a file, and buying the decal paper, print yourself up a bunch of extras. So if someday your friend buys the same bike, in the case of Turbo Steve bought a 250, we already had done other Kawasaki decals he could have used if he wanted to. And we always make extra ones. These are the ones Joe Roselli made for the Ago helmet. And custom ones, these don't exist. John did these from scratch. And so the whole thing with decaling is you can bury it in paint a lot easier than a sticker. It's much thinner. That's the big advantage. Here we got Ninja ones too. But the overall thing is, it's just a better quality job. A motorcycle company has to make a profit, so what they do is they make a sticker. It's on vinyl, it's very thick, and they stick it on and press it on. And most guys buy the bike, they heat gun it off if they have to. But once we put these decals on and we bury them in clear, they're on until you repaint the bike. So it stands to reason what we're doing is, because we have all these printed, I want to print the best ones. Now this one has some little flaws in it. We're going to eliminate that sheet. I have to look at it with my glasses on, because some of these, I remember why we printed so many. We had a problem with the paper, and of course there's no label on the paper, and we reprinted them several times, but one of the sets at the very end came out real good. This one's not too good. This one looks like the best that we have so far. And this one doesn't look too bad either. So we have, and this one doesn't look so bad. So we have plenty of decals. Now, the reason, even if you're not going to print spares, if you only need 2 decals, don't print 2, because every once in a while they don't lay down right, or there's some other issue with them. And then you need another one. Now you got to go back to the printer and wherever you got it from, and a mess. These are water slide decals. They need to be clear coated. I know some people that we've watched the video and they kind of fast forward through everything. They don't realize you got to leave at least a 1/16 of an inch border around here, or else what happens, it's real simple. That when you water slide it, the water gets under, loosens up the laser ink, and then you have a mess. So it looks like we have 3. I'm going to look at these real close, pick the best 2, and trim them so I have at least a 1/16 of an inch of a border around them. Now the best way I know of to cut these is on a self-healing pad. This is every modeler knows what that is. It's just a pad that you can cut, like you use a chopping board so you don't beat up your blade, but use a brand new blade. Don't compromise the blades, that's for sure. And I've found out that there's an amount you can leave on this. In fact, I got to take this tape off before I make an error. There's an amount you can leave on as a border, and it's just perfect. And then there's an amount you can leave on, and it's unnecessary. But I haven't exactly figured it in a measurement. I just do it by eye. But you do need to leave. You can't cut right up onto the printed area, or that ink tends to bleed. So let's leave, if anything, let's stack the deck in our favor here. And let's hope it's our lucky day. If it's our lucky day, I'll be very happy. And when you cut, it's always a good idea not to have a sharp point anywhere. What happens, a sharp point wants to curl up as the decal is drying through the drying cycle. So that's another little tip you can put in the bank. Now, the normal routine for putting one of these on is to take a paper towel. And boy, I wish we could buy Bounty paper towels around here. There are none around. We've got this, I don't know, brand from Uzbekistan or something. I don't know where they're from. But they're not nice and soft like the Bounty. Now I want to make sure I don't have any fingerprints and any tape residue, anything on this area. So far it looks like this is just about as good as it gets. You take the decal, it's been trimmed with a 1/16 of an inch border. This is ordinary warm water. It's what's going to happen, it's going to start to curl up because of the way this material works. And all of the decal papers are a little bit different. If I remember right, it was Papilio that was the real good one, but they went out of business. But I don't remember. And it's a good idea if you're buying decal paper and you're getting it off the internet somewhere, buy one of every brand and see which one works the best. Which is obviously the best way to do anything. Okay, so I'm letting this sit. It's ordinary warm water. Sooner or later it's going to loosen up. It usually takes 30 seconds. I wanted to do one of these in real time. I know from looking at the pictures it's right about here. In other words, the decal doesn't go there and it doesn't go way up here. It goes about here. And I want to line it up pretty much in the middle. Let's see if it's our lucky day. And then what I'll do is I'll take a piece of tape and go over the top of the tank so that they're both symmetrical. Even though things like this, it's really impossible to make them symmetrical, as we found out with the FZR, because of they're leaning one way. When you do the other side, it leans, and in other words, what I'm saying is to make it right, you have to make it mechanically wrong to make it artistically right. That looks a little too far forward. So you do get to play with it just a little bit here. Okay, now the trick is it's a sunburst, so we're going to start at the middle and work out. Start at the middle and work out. Start at the middle, work up, like a sunburst, always working from the middle out. And this is going to require maybe 10 minutes of babysitting. As the adhesive in the paper is drying out, it does take a little babysitting to keep the edges down. Now I do have some stuff, I gotta find it. There'll be plenty of time to put it on that softens the decal. It's called Solvaset. They use it in model trains. You actually probably use it in model planes too. And that, once that lays down, now it's a delicate thing. I like to do it. What I'm doing now, I'll be doing for the next 5 minutes, and there's no point letting the camera run. I just got to work out the air bubbles. The air bubbles, at this point, everything is soft, easy to get them out. Usually, if you're going around a curve, it'll bend a certain amount, and that's why you make extra decals, just in case it doesn't. But we will just, for the time being now, about 5 minutes of babysitting, and we'll come back to this. And hopefully this will be all laying down just perfectly. All right, after 5 minutes of babysitting it, there's always little spots on the edge that don't want to sit down. And this is why we babysit it. But even that edge, that'll get buried and clear. But the one thing not to do is pull it down. Is always go from the decal out, decal out, decal out. And you'll see at some point in time you'll get 90% of the edges down. The 10% you don't. Once we bury this in clear and sand over it. Now this, because I did all the prep underneath this, I did that 2000 grit sanding. Had I not done that, right now this would be all full of little mountains. There's a little spot here he doesn't really want to sit down. But again, I don't know which one of the, I wish I did, which one of the papers, and we tried some of everything, and Joe Roselli bought some paper, and so did Turbo Steve, and we went back and forth for so many times, but all of that is out on the channel somewhere. If somebody is, you could just dial up on my channel, dial up the word decal, and it'll all come up. There we go. Okay, now that's gonna, basically that's gonna sit overnight, but I'm gonna do the other side. I'm going to take a piece of tape, and again, I'm going to reference this point. But remember, as I said before, and we learned this with the FZR, when these letters are facing backward, to make it look symmetrical, even though you don't even really see it. But I did look at the pictures to see how close I could get it. But it didn't go all the way up here, and it wasn't in the back. So I think I've got it. I think I've got the look that we're looking for. But I want to make it the same. And again, I always try to approach these things like do the best I possibly can. Now, because this stripe tapers, I didn't want to have it even with the bottom or even with the top. I tried to eyeball it that it's right in the middle. I don't know if I got it or not. I won't know until the client gets out the checkbook. Now that little piece of tape will just help me get this side lined up relatively the same, and I've tried not to get it to go parallel to the bottom or the top, try to eyeball it right in the middle. And I think that's pretty close to what the factory ones were. Now, of course, this is going to have to dry overnight, and to be honest, I have gone out on hot sunny days and gone out and put the first coat of clear on, or maybe even more clear. I've waited an hour, the minimum, but the thing I'm always afraid of in cool weather is you trap moisture under the decal if you don't let it sit overnight, and maybe that's not true. I don't pretend to know, but I do know there have been times I've put decals on and rushed it, and then the next day I noticed there's a little bubble or something. So what I want to do with this, I want to let this sit overnight. Tomorrow's supposed to be, well, we'll find out. You never know when it's going to be a day I can paint. But we're expecting rain this afternoon, so I don't want to be in the middle of trying to do this, and boy, does that get frustrating. And then you always say, oh, I'll just get this done, oh, I'll rush, and then the quality suffers, and I don't like when quality suffers. It's hard enough to do good work without making it harder on yourself. Now, my late friend George Venturini used to say, he taught me how to mix concrete. we were doing a porch for his daughter, and he taught me how to mix concrete. And he said, it's hard enough to mix concrete. You don't have to find ways to make it harder. that stuck with me. And he was right. All right, we're going to do the same thing. No sense boring people to death. We're going to let this just sit. And then we're going to put it up and babysit both sides for a little bit of time until we get this to lay down as good as we possibly can. And then tomorrow or the next paintable day, it'll be time to start burying it in clear. Now, usually I would put on 2 coats of clear and let that sit for a couple of days, minimum 1 day, and then wet sand it out and put that final coat on, depending on how all these paint lines are really nice, by the way. And it is very enjoyable to me to see the quality of the job. Now, had I not put that 2000 grit sand in and gone over all those little divots and things, wouldn't be this nice for sure. And again, because this one is leaning this way, it's going to look wrong if I were to put this in a mirror. To make it look right, like the Parthenon, the posts, you have to make it a little bit wrong to make it look right. That doesn't sound scientific, but hey. And that got us really in the ballpark. It's about 5 minutes, and this is totally laying down really nice. Really nice. But again, I'm gun shy. I never, there's always a thing in my mind. Whenever you rush something, yeah, sometimes you get away with it. But boy, it's like robbing a bank. The times you don't, you really pay. So as the time went by, these decals laid down just perfectly. Sometimes you got to fight with them. That's why we always make extra decals. But I think the tank is going to be great now. I want to wait patiently for a day that I absolutely will be able to spray to clear, because what I like to do is get a coat on, let it dry at least 20 minutes, half an hour, put a second coat on, let it dry, make sure everything is just the way I want. Usually after 2 thick coats, I decide if I need a third coat, because I want to start burying everything in clear and burying the decals. Then that's going to sit for 2-3 days, hopefully by a heating vent. We'll wet sand the whole thing down and put that final wet coat on. And then Luciano will have the choice of, well, you know, does he want to buff it or sell it on eBay or whatever. Anyway, I think it really came out good. I think there's some good information on this, actually on a lot of our videos. And thank you to all the people that contribute to the information base that we all have. Thank you, Scott, for putting all that information about the Suzukis out there. Anyway, and we do like to share it on the A-Team. But most of all, the always thing in the back of my mind, thank you guys, the healthcare heroes that made this all possible. I can't even imagine these poor families that have, my family's been safe so far. I don't know, I'm very thankful, believe me. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure Luciano enjoyed the video, because he's going to have one hell of a gas tank when he's done. And all the jobs that we share, the little pitfalls that we can fall into, it's just what makes the passion of motorcycling and modeling a lot more fun. So again, hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoy editing them, and thank you so much for watching.
And we try to post a video almost every day. This is a little tribute to our good friend Mark Morgan with his Suzuki. Mark's been working in Pittsburgh, so we haven't seen him basically for a while, but he's still out there.
Nothing like two-stroke in the morning, right?
Oh, yeah. Nothing like the smell of napalm in the morning.
A fellow two-stroke lover. What's not to like, Mark?
Just share this with our friends. And the wind is blowing about 100 miles an hour here. Really brutal. We're getting blown around.
And that was the bike before restoration, the black bike. But anyway, this was a good day. We did try to pass on some of the good information for doing custom decaling, or even decals you buy off the internet. But I prefer the decals much more than stickers, for the simple reason I can bury them in paint, and I can do that, give it that world-class look, not the look of, well, they skimped on the clear. Also, when you're buffing out a bike and you buff over stickers, you tend to go through. when you're doing water slide decals, you minimize that chance. Good technology. Anyway, but I do enjoy editing the video. I really hope you enjoy watching them. Share them with your friends, and as I always say, thanks so much for watching.